When I first started working here, this area wasn't developed like it is now. So to be right here in the community and to be a part of it as it's developing and growing, man, it's an amazing thing.
This is our home. Home presents security. Home presents responsibility. And it also helps you with a vision, because when you have a home, you can imagine all kinds of things.
A lot of what this orchestra does currently, my work included, is made possible by this space that we are in, this original historical space and the additional space that we've created. And of course, then the onus is on us to make sure that this space is a space for everybody. And that's where a lot of the work continues.
In the wake of Orchestra Hall's expansion into the Max M. and Marjorie S. Fisher Music Center in 2003, excitement for a new fixture of art and culture on Woodward Avenue was the highest it had been since the building's golden years under the baton of Gabrilowitsch. However, within just a few years, dark financial skies were on the horizon once again.
Detroit was obviously one of the first cities to be affected by the recession. And when you have to go through those tough times, I think that tradition, it's always there in the back of your mind, because you start worrying about the future and you don't want a tradition to end. And you're trying to figure out everything you can in order to make sure that this can go on.
And I truly believe that in the Great Recession, for example, we had a number of issues that came in front of us, a work stoppage and a settlement of a bank debt, that we almost went out of business. And I would say that if it weren't for Ann Parsons, we would be out of business at this point, quite frankly.
When you face a challenge, the most important thing is not to freeze and not to dig in and go into denial, but to accept it. And that's what we did.
While both the city and the nation teetered on the edge of yet another economic collapse, the challenges in front of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra were made that much graver, considering the fact that they still needed a new maestro.
When we went through those tough times, it seemed like a leader would emerge who was perfectly suited to the time.
Leonard Slatkin came in when it was really dangerous here. But Slatkin proved that it was not too dangerous, because he stepped in and took hold and took through.
When Leonard comes, I think there was an excitement, a world-renowned figure taking over the leadership of the orchestra.
And it turned out to be really the perfect partnership at the perfect moment for us because of Leonard's real community-centric way of leading an orchestra, which was what we were yearning for at that time.
This is not just an orchestra, it's a family. And this is not just a staff, but it's a community.
Leonard plays a really important role when he comes here because it is a very difficult time for the orchestra. You know, we had obviously a major strike here in 2010 and 11. And Leonard, because he was so experienced and such a pro and such a tremendous musician, was a real calming force. And that was very reassuring at a time when not much else was.
When I arrived, everybody knew that the orchestra was in severe financial shape. Despite Maestro Jarvi's incredibly successful and much to be lauded tenure, he'd been gone for almost 5 years. There was no interaction in the community. And aside from the recordings Maestro Jarvi made, there was no real documentation of the orchestra itself. So my goals were to get those things in place.
The webcasts started with the thought, well, why couldn't we be the most accessible orchestra on the planet? So we have broadcasted to over 1 million viewers in over 100 countries. And this broadcast led to a new innovation, which was webcasting educational content to the children in the Detroit school system.
One of the things that I'm really proud of for the Detroit Symphony here in Orchestra Hall is their efforts to really think outside of the box in terms of how to make what we do more relevant to the community around us.
We need to embrace technology if we're going to be successful. I think that that's been seen for all of time with this organization. And technology is a way of connecting people at a higher and better level all the time.
It's a way to get the message and, to some degree, the sound of the orchestra to a broader public other than the 1,700 or so people that come to attend a concert in the hall. Now you're reaching out. You go out in the community, you play concerts in the community, you're reaching out to them. And with the webcasts, people can now put faces to the individuals who are on stage.
To have this outreach, to be able to touch the next generation, to have that exposure, it really goes a long way in creating a rich community.
When the Cube opened and started hosting, poetry slams, and jazz programs that were going on the same time that we would be playing a Tchaikovsky concert. And it's really nice to see that fusion happening.
This building is a hive of activity, more so today than it has ever been. The orchestra in this building have a greater chance than they've ever had of fulfilling the prophecy from 1919 that this would become the center of musical culture in Detroit.
It's a community effort. That's the main thing. We cannot sit here by ourselves and imagine our way to an inclusive space. We need to be connected to people. We need to hear from people. We need to be talking to people. And most importantly, we need people in this space so that we can know if it is working.
Today, a century since its hasty construction, Orchestra Hall still provides that looking glass for the city of Detroit. It reminds us of where we have been, of what we have overcome, and it provides the inspiration and solace we sometimes still need to know that even when it seems like our best days are behind us, there may indeed be an even brighter future ahead.
I think Detroit and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and Orchestra Hall all have stories of resiliency.
To me, it's a very Detroit story, and it in many ways captures the best of Detroit.
I've always kind of felt that it was kind of the center of musical life in the city, because it represents a certain kind of ideal, a certain kind of timelessness of great music. It's Orchestra Hall. It's going to be here. That is as constant as it can get.
It's inspiring for concert goers to see that there's a building that's still standing at 100 years. I think that gives everyone a sense of hope of the future and of classical music and of just culture in general.
When you see the faces in our civic youth ensemble, not just the players on the stage, but the audience of children who are mouths wide open, thinking, I can do this, gives them an inspiring vision for what they can be. It's incredibly important.
The fact is that we have an obligation to continue the transformation of Detroit so that people choose to live, work, play, and raise their children here. And this institution and Orchestra Hall will always be a centerpiece of that.
Detroit is a city that continually reinvents itself. They talk about it boom and bust. But what a wonderfully resilient city it is. And the only thing that we can hope to equal is the quality of Orchestra Hall and the stark, wonderful silence that draws people here hungry for a sound that they would hear nowhere else.